Hey everybody, welcome to another Stuff Sketched. I'm Gregg Schigiel, and on this episode, I'm drawing Batman. After the first episode where I do the thing, I thought it might be nice to do a full figure drawing, not just head and shoulders. So what you're seeing now is a drawing being done at 2.5 times the normal speed. This is sped up 250%. So I'm blocking in the figure work. A thing I talk about when people ask me about it is how drawing is like baking, and this every process is a stage in baking, whether it's measuring your ingredients, mixing your ingredients, baking them, etc. So this is what I would call the measuring of the ingredients, making sure everything is in proper proportion. Um, this is constructing a figure. I don't know if I take longer with this than other people or not. I don't know. Everybody approaches this differently. I learned the bones of this from the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and then a lot of just watching other people draw, sort of like things like this. Although when I was a kid, YouTube didn't exist, so or the internet didn't exist for that matter. So I would watch, making of extras on VHS tapes, for instance, or there would be a special about the making of The Lion King, and I would watch that, and you'd catch glimpses of people drawing, just how to draw, how to draw books and that sort of thing. But also a lot of drawing, a lot of practice. Now notice where the knee of that back leg and the hand go, everything's just getting drawn over everything else. There's no real. I'm not worrying about what's overlapping or what isn't just yet, because this is still, again, the rough construction. Here's where I'm making decisions, like getting rid of that arm. Why wasn't I happy with that arm? I honestly couldn't tell you. But what you're about to see is a ridiculous process of me really trying to figure out this right arm. Looking back on the drawing after I've done it, I think should have just left it well enough alone. But what are you gonna do? I try and do these drawings relatively quickly, so that I don't have to speed them up too much, so that they fit within the 15-minute runtime. That arm was fine too. I don't know why I got rid of it, but I did. So yeah, you will see how much time I spend on this one arm. So anyway, this is the construction. I can't just keep talking about that arm. I redraw it, I think 2 or 3 more times. But this is the construction part. This is, again, where I formulate all the proportions, the shapes, the blocking, and make sure everything looks sound. The reason I spend so much time doing this is because, again, much like baking, this is making the cake. This is measuring the ingredients and baking them. Everything after this point kind of becomes frosting the cake or letting it cool or what have you. So yeah, this is making sure there's enough flour, making sure there's enough butter, making sure there's enough of eggs, and then baking it for the right amount of time so that the cake has the right crumb structure. And I'm really over talking about baking. Maybe you want cake now. Now this is just sort of blocking in a very rough idea of a gargoyle for Batman to be resting on. For the sake of these videos, I'm focusing mostly on the figure drawing. Maybe at another point I'll concern myself with background stuff. Maybe not. So my take on Batman, as you will see, it's very specifically harkens to the Batman I think of as my favorite Batman. It is a classic. Some would say 70s, others would say 80s, some would say 60s, but it is a Batman that has a yellow oval around his bat symbol on his chest, and the capsule belt, no pouches on his belt. It's very much a superhero version of Batman, if I can call it that. If this were a color drawing, the cape and cowl would be blue, the costume would be gray. I posted the finished drawing on Twitter not too long ago, and somebody asked about how I handle the feathering on the cowl. So I'm going to address that a little bit. You could see in the rough pencil version, It's a lot of scritch scratch, just sort of blocking the spaces. Oh, what's happening right here is I feel like its head is too big. So using the power of digital, this is being drawn in Clip Studio Paint on a Cintiq drawing tablet. All right, so now I'm satisfied with the construction. I knocked that down, and now I'm going in with a different pen and making my sort of final clean lines, my finished inked drawing, as it were. Again, these are more sketches than maybe finished comic book artwork, but you get the basic idea of what's going on here. So back to the cowl. So you could see in the pencil part, I sort of block in a rough sense of where the cowl shadows go. Again, basing a lot of it on my sense of classic Batman, a Neil Adams, Jim Aparo Batman. A little bit, I guess, the 60s Batman TV show, although that black area is defined as a part of the costume versus in the comics where it's meant as a shadow effect. I'm a big fan of Alan Davis's approach to the cowl and the shading of it, where there's maybe a little more cross-hatching going on. So when I do it, it's sort of an amalgamation and an approximation of all those things that I like, and you'll see when I get to that part in the inking. Now, as I'm watching myself draw, and it's interesting even for me to watch myself draw, there really is no rhyme or reason to, I don't think, to where I start and stop, why I ink part of a leg, why I inked that one line on his chest, and then just went to the leg, why I haven't inked the bottom, there it is, bottom of his thigh. It just sort of, I don't know. I should pay more attention to why I go about things in the order I go about them. I mean, I guess I'm kind of going clockwise, but then why did I abandon that back leg? I don't know. Yeah, it's a mystery. With regard to muscle placement and how I determine that stuff, a lot of looking at how other people did it. Analyzing how other cartoonists, other comic book artists have done the shorthand of the human figure. A lot of animation as well. Sort of finds nice shortcuts on how to approximate the different muscle groups and make it look as though, in the case of his left arm there, his leaning arm, a bit of a twist to how the arm is positioned. As far as hands go, I think I may at some point do a video of just hands, just me drawing a bunch of hands, which is something I actually do if I'm on the phone or otherwise sort of doodling around. I doodle hands quite a bit, and there's a lot of different ways to approach them. There's that back leg. Scallop on the gloves. Again, it's very what I refer to as a classic Batman. Underwear on the outside, or what I would call a superhero looking Batman. This is not a Batman that is going to show up in a movie anytime soon, because people seem to like when he's wearing armor, and I like when he looks like a superhero. Now I'm using the magic of digital to fill in the inside of the cape. This isn't a thing that happens very much, where the scalloping of the cape is shown, but I don't know. I thought it looked all right. Switch to a white pen and make those lines. A lot of discussion amongst people of how long the ears should be. I feel like they look pretty good about that long. Okay, so the cowl. So the first thing is, I pulled from Alan Davis the not closing off the eyes in that area, and then I was working on the cowl shading, and that looked fine, but I for some reason wasn't happy with it, so I started over, and I went with something like this. Now, why did I go with that? I couldn't entirely tell you. I think I just liked the way it looked. In other cases, I do a more domed cowl shading. In general, I don't think of that cowl shading as anything to do with where a light source is. It really just becomes a matter of what looks neat. On the other hand, the cape sort of follows, I guess, some kind of rule where the shadows sort of come out from where his chest would be, and the highlights around the edges. I suppose? I don't know. Maybe if there was a strong light source, I might approach it differently. But you'll notice I don't actually add any shadows to the cape portions. It's all just his chest and face mask, cowl port. Now the bat symbol, I learned how to draw that from an old drawing book of how to draw superheroes, and I still draw it the exact same way, with the V, cutting the V, and then doing all the scallops of the bat wings for this particular bat signal, the one that's in the oval. If I were doing the freestanding bat, it would be a different approach. But yeah, there's that book I had as a kid, and it's still, some of those things lock into your brain and they stay there forever. So now you go in, you add, again, shadows that just sort of help break up the figure, help define the parts of the costume that would be blue or black, depending on your Batman flavor. If you like chips or no chips. If we're talking about ice cream or cookies. It all goes back to some sort of baked good or sweet, doesn't it? A little approximation of a wrinkle in the shorts there, the trunks, the underwear, whatever you're comfortable calling them. I'll call them underwear. I think an important thing is to not be embarrassed about superheroes. They are, to my opinion, probably most logical and entertaining for children, but there's no reason to not enjoy them as a thing. Fun to draw, I think. I don't know, not for everybody. Teach their own. Now you saw the screen move a little bit. That's, again, digital stuff, moving the canvas around. I'm trying with these videos to keep everything complete, as though you're looking at the full sheet of paper. Not doing a lot of zooming in. I'm not zooming in as I draw. I'm drawing everything at the size that's on my screen. Again, the idea being to keep it as analog as possible, despite all the digital technology. In the same way I try and do these audio commentaries all in one take. So you're getting ums and uhs and maybe me tripping over words every now and again. So at this point, I'm still cleaning some stuff up, and soon now I'm working on the face details. A little bit of shading here and there, and I like a Batman that smiles a little bit, so I think in this one I drew him with a small, a little bit of a grin. Again, to the idea of Batman as a superhero, I just like, he's scary to the bad guys, but he's a superhero, and he's a good guy. So I like making him with a grin. Not such a grump. It's boring. Some extra shadows and shading and definition on his torso. Other little scritchy lines that you may or may not be able to see in the video, but that's what's happening here. Last minute touches, last minute flourishes, and then a little signature. And that's it. Signed. It's done. Thanks again for watching. That's about all the stuff I have left to say. See you next time.